Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the School of Geography YouTube channel. And we are back on today again to continue where we stopped at settlements. So, we're going to move on to describing communication networks on a map. So, if you are not familiar, which portion this part of the map reading section come from, it is on your syllabus under landscape descriptions, and you would see all of the following. So good afternoon, everyone. Let me know if you are here. You can type in the chat if you are hearing me, if you are seeing me, if everything is okay. So just let me know. I will give people a little 5 minutes to come in. So how are you all doing? How are you all faring with respect to preparing for exam? So anyone is there? Can you all see the live? I'm not seeing any responses, so you can let me know if you are there. Okay, so hi everyone again. Good afternoon. And we are moving on to describing communication networks today. I hope that you all are there and that you all are hearing me. Remember to share with your friends. Remember to subscribe to the channel and also hit the notification bell so that you don't miss the sessions when I go live. It is more beneficial when you click on the live because you will be able to ask questions in the comment section. So that is why it is important to click the notification bell. So it is now 5:07. We normally start at 5. So I'm just giving a few more minutes, 3 minutes for people to come into the live, and then I will begin. And I have a couple maps for us to work on today. So remember again to share with your friends that may also need, some help with map work. So what is communication? Good evening, Gabrielle Brown. Thanks for joining me again. It's nice to see you here. So we're looking at communication networks, and last class I mentioned that communication is more than your roads on a map. It has to take into account, or it takes into account, I should say, both land, air, and water. So you're talking about things like in Trinidad and Tobago, we have what we call the ferry. Good evening, Faith. Nice to see my regulars on. The rest of y'all who are there and are shy and is a bit shy, it's okay, to connect with us. So we have what we call the water taxi that also facilitates transport. So, communication, one aspect of communication network is transport network. And you look at this from the land, from the air, and the sea, right? Land, air, sea, land, air, water, right? Land, air, water. So, sea facilitates the movement of ferries, right? Air transport, we know, okay, by airplanes, helicopters, jets, etc. And on a map that you all would be particularly looking at, most times they ask you all about the roads. So I'm going to begin because it's now 10 past and we have quite a bit to cover, right? And your exam is right around the corner. So when you get a map, you're going to look for the dominant line of communication. And in this case, you're going to be looking at the transport networks on the map. So you're going to look at if you see footpaths on the map, or is it a well-developed map? Well developed. Are the footpaths, are you seeing footpath, or is there a well-developed transport network of roads, right? So that is the first thing you're going to look for. The other thing you're going to look for is the density of the communication. Just like when we looked at rivers, just like when we looked at settlements, you also look at density. So a well-developed or dense area of road networks is an indication that this area is well developed. Everybody understand that? So anybody here lives in a rural area? Do we have anyone that is from a rural area here today? So if you live in a rural area, right? You know, sometimes in some very rural areas, the roads are not even paved, right? But where you have a dense network of roads, for example, in suburban areas or areas surrounding cities, you're going to have this complex networks of roads. So you all ever travel outside of Trinidad? And if you haven't, I'm sure you would have looked at movies. And when you look at movies set in the US, you would see sometimes some very complex structures of roads. Have you all ever seen this? Where you would see a lot of overpasses, or sometimes you go to the US and then you look at the roads, you become very confused. This is because this dense network facilitates movement throughout the city and also outside the city, connects the city to areas on the outskirts, right? You're going to look for any physical obstruction on the map, right? Physical environment obstruction on the map, or the or aid that aid the construction of communication lines. So what you're going to look at would be things like, are the roads straight? Sometimes the roads being straight is an indication that the road is actually on flat land or constructed on flat land. When roads become very winding, especially in the Caribbean, you know that is because it's going uphill, right? Mountainous areas. So that is another thing that you can point out. The physical limitation are there, any physical environmental limitation. Then you again, you can look at the functions of the settlement that this road area would serve a particular purpose, right? So the functions of the area will also give you an idea of whether this area will have a dense network. So if it's commercial, you know there's going to be a lot more roads as opposed to agricultural land that would have more footpaths. Are you all following me? Are you all following me? Good afternoon, Isabel. Good afternoon. Nice to see you here today. Hi, Grace again. Good evening, everyone. So, are you all following so far? Okay, good. So, another thing that you can ask yourself when you get the map is, how how have the communication networks affected the settlement patterns that you see? So, the networks of roads is also going to impact on the type of settlement. So we know a nucleated settlement is usually centered around a city where you're going to have a complex network of roads. Okay, Jonathan, thank you for the feedback. So, a communication network connects places via lines that form a system, right? So we know, or I already stated that there are different types. You pay attention to the land, the sea, and the air. And this is shown all in your key. So very important, when you get a map, you go to the key and see what communication networks you see there. Most of the times, of course, it's going to be focused on roads. Or sometimes you can see an airport, sometimes you see a harbor. All of that is an indication of the area's development, right? So we know that the density and complexity of communication develops in size. So let us take, for example, the San Fernando area. I am not sure if you all remember when before San Fernando, there was not that big construction of this new overpass that they wanted to connect to Point 14 and the remodeling of the road because, of course, they wanted to facilitate greater and easier movement. Also, in the north, if you look at Grand Bazaar, they removed that. Um, they expanded the overpass there and they expanded the lane so you get a more wider network, denser network of communication that facilitates easier movement. Everybody understand that? So that is how communication works. Um, Again, it is easier to construct roads on flat land as opposed to on steep slopes or hills or mountains. And of course, there are going to be limitations to communications. For example, swamps. People cannot build, you cannot build a road through a swamp, right? Or you cannot build an airport landing strip in a swamp, right? So these things are also very important to note when you are explaining from the map. So transport networks in developing areas, when we say developing areas, we mean areas that are not as well connected like the cities. These areas that have less roads, they tend to have a more random or ad hoc, meaning it is not planned. So it's usually very unplanned. So I remember yesterday, some of you all were stating that you are from rural areas. You can let me know, right? In your area, do you think that the road network there is planned or is it random? Do you see that it is a planned network? Kind of. Okay. Peter said it's a planned network, right? Sometimes, how would you know or you can identify it's not really planned? A lot of the time, people, you would see that the roads are not paved, right? And basically, somebody just come and cut a path. So it's more of a path than a road. But we have a lot of those in Trinidad, right? Especially in the outskirts of the city. So then you have sparse transport networks are found in developing areas where the population size is small and there's very little need for traveling outside. So a lot of the times they will not spend, governments will not spend money to develop dense transport outside of the city area. And that is why you find little people live in rural areas. You have little population size in rural areas. Whereas dense and complex areas of transport is found in larger areas with greater population, and cities that have large population that would need greater mobility between their homes. For example, suburban areas to connect suburban areas to urban areas, right? So the next thing we're going to look at is this is what it looks like on a map. So you should be able to see. So on a map, in the key, you would see these symbols for the different communication networks. So you would see here road networks, you would see railroads, you would see bridges, right? And you would see the obstructions as well. And you would see streams, because remember, streams facilitates water transport as well, right? So you can see major roads, and major roads are usually in the dark red. The lighter red on the map is indicative of minor roads. You would also see the rail roads, and it usually looks like a plush through the road itself. And with the airports, you're going to see a symbol for like a little airplane, right? So now we pay particular attention to road density. When you look at road density has to do with the number of roads, right, in the area, the amount of roads in an area. And the higher the amount of roads in an area, the more connected that area is and more accessible. You ever you all ever use Waze? And sometimes if Waze don't find like a main road, they're going to reroute you on a road that is not well developed, right? So once you have an area that is well developed, it is easy to move from one point to another. So urban areas tend to have dense network linking the area outside the city and within the city. So if you look at Port of Spain or San Fernando, you would notice there are a lot of roads that connect you within the city itself and on the outskirts. And of course, villages are connected mainly by probably one major road, and you would have minor footpaths, especially in agricultural fields if they are growing crops, right? So for this map, you can see on the map that the road is very close to the coast, and there are also some roads that along that main road, but it is connecting the main road to inland areas of the country. Can you all see that? So you're seeing that the main road connects to other roads within the inland of the country. Are you all seeing that? So since we okay, good. Since we looked at roads, Okay, so that is road. Okay, Makila, nice to see you all back here. I'm going to continue. So we're going to go into vegetation. So vegetation on a map is usually described in two ways. You have natural vegetation, and then you're going to have cultivated vegetation, right? So natural vegetation. What do you think natural vegetation is? When you get a map and it says to identify the vegetation, most time they're referring to natural vegetation. So know that. And what is natural vegetation? So you have natural vegetation and then you have cultivated vegetation. Don't look at my screen. I'm going to make it small so that you can see. So, what is natural vegetation and what is cultivated vegetation? Give me a few examples of natural vegetation, then give me a few examples of cultivated vegetation. Okay, so what do you think is natural vegetation and what do you think is cultivated vegetation? Come on. Very good. So Isabel is correct. Natural vegetation is vegetation that is naturally occurring in the environment or naturally grows in the environment. It is not something that was planted by a person, right? So, for example, you have forest, very good. Faith says you have broken forest, swamp, you have mangroves, you have savanna. Sometimes you would see trees and shrubs, right? Which is also all natural. And then cultivated vegetation or cultivation on a map would be shown by things that are grown or agricultural activities that take place on the map. So, what are some common cultivation or cultivated crops that you see on a map that you can go to the map and look in the key and you would see there? What are some of the known cultivated crops on the map, found on the map? Very good, Jonathan. Jonathan is saying cultivated is vegetation on farms, for example, sweet pepper, right? But we rarely see sweet pepper on this topographical map because that is like small scale farming, Jonathan. But we normally see more and more monocrop and more large scale farming. So you see things more like exactly sugar cane, rice, corn, tobacco, coffee. Very good, Isabel. Coconut trees, cane fields, rice, Mackenzie. Excellent, guys. Excellent. Excellent. Right? So you all know that. So we just went through that. So when you see on your map, describe the vegetation. Do not confuse the natural vegetation with the cultivated. Remember, natural, it grows naturally. cultivated is planted, and usually tell you that. Types of natural vegetation include forest, trees, shrubs, mangroves, woodland, right? When you get a question on vegetation, just like when I spoke about settlements and rivers, you give a good reference of its location where you are seeing it. Give a compass direction, give a name of a town to reference it so your examiner knows exactly what you are referring to, and they will be very pleased that you can identify it using these location references, right? Describe the extent of the vegetation. Is it a small area? Is it in large, grown on large areas? Is it in patches or pockets, right? And describe the elevation. Is it grown on flat land? So you might see forests on more steeper slopes, but cultivated vegetation would be on flatter areas, right? So if you look at this map, this dark green area on this map, and these maps where you see a lot of maps looking like this, it's usually a Jamaica map. So on this particular map, you see that there's a lot of forest, and the forest is in green, the dark green area, and the lighter yellow area, that is usually sugar cane on a map. So always refer to your key, right? So cultivated vegetation now, these are where people grow crops, and it can range from mixed small scales to scattered cultivation to large commercial agriculture. So your key again is very important in indicating what type of vegetation that you would see on the map, right? So on there, you're going to look for the ones that we just stated. Sugar cane, rice, coffee, they would all have distinct symbols. And of course, you're going to be describing the types of vegetation and where they are found. Are they found on flat land? Are they found near the coast? Are they along rivers? Very important. Now we get into the very important part, and they always ask you all about this, about the relationship among relief, drainage, vegetation, land use, communication, and settlement. So putting it all together, and they ask you how relief influences drainage, vegetation, land use in terms of functions like agriculture, commercial, etc., settlements, and communication. So we know relief is a change in elevation. It's not just height, but the change in elevation or change in the slope of the Earth's surface. So when we say that an area is flat, gently sloping, or mountainous, we are referring about the relief. Relief is important because it affects a lot of aspects of our life, including the climate. So you know, the higher you go, the higher you locate, of course, the more colder or cooler you feel. And sometimes, of course, it's going to affect um, the amount of rainfall you receive as well, right? If you go higher into an area that has a lot of forest, you may experience a lot of rain. So the relief directly impacts on the drainage of an area, the vegetation as well, the settlements where people locate, communication where communication is located, and the land use that can be done. So relief on drainage. Relief affects the way water flows. We know that, and we did this last day. We talked about on steep slopes, the water is going to run down quickly, cutting downwards, creating steep V-shaped valleys. Right? On gentle slopes, the river flows more slowly, and you have more meandering develop, meaning the river begins to curve, right? And you have more wider or lateral erosion. How do you tell wider valleys on a map from steep V-shaped valleys on a map? How do you tell the difference between steep V-shaped valleys on a map and wider valleys on a map? Can anybody tell me? So you get a map and you are looking to see the relief. you want to know what type of valley it is. How would you be able to tell that? How would you be able to recognize a steep V-shaped valley or a wider V-shaped valley or U-shaped valley? Can you all tell me that? Very good, Grace. The contour lines. So, what about the contour lines now? So, we know, yes, the contour lines will give us this indication. But remember how contours that are closer are steep, very good, Michaela, and contours that are wider, right, or further apart suggest that the area is flat or has a wider valley. The distance between the contour lines, Gabriel, excellent. Isabel, look at the elevation on the banks of both sides of the river. Very good. And you look at elevation using the contours would be labeled, right? And on either side of the river, you can see that. So areas near swamps and marshland, of course, is going to be very flat. So the influence of relief on vegetation. So again, we spoke about steep slopes are very difficult to settle on, for settlements to be built on, and it's also more costly, likewise, to cultivate on steep slope, unless it's like Paramin. Anybody ever heard about Paramin? Do you all know of Paramin? Anybody ever heard about Paramin here? Or been to Paramin in Trinidad and Tobago? If you never, I want you to Google or go on YouTube and look for the community of Paramin. Anybody ever heard about Paramin? Yes, Michaela. So what is Paramin known for? What is Paramin known for? Isabel, very good. What is Paramin known for? Alicia? Hi, Alicia. Nice to meet you. This is the first time I think I'm seeing you commenting. What school do you attend? Or where are you from in the country? So Paramin, right, is in the north, and it is a very hilly, steep area in Trinidad and Tobago, and it is known for, yes, Isabel, agriculture, but growing more specifically herbs. So you would see a lot of, when you go to your grocery, like you go to Massey stores, they supply Massey stores with chive and dill and parsley and all these really nice, okay, nice, very nice. San Fernando in the house, right? A lot of herbs. And the agriculture is basically on a slope. So they have adapted to those conditions, but what they have done is that they cut the land along the natural shape of the contours, and why they do that is to facilitate the runoff. So the when rainfall, everything will not be destroyed, all their crops will not be destroyed, because they create now like the little steps or terraces that helps the water to go down the slope slower. and they have adapted to what a method they use, which they call A-framing, that cuts the land along the contours, the 90. They have on right angle, 90 degrees contours that facilitates them to be able to grow and walk on the slope. So go to YouTube and you will see lots of videos about it. It's very cool, right? So natural vegetation tend to strive better. Hi, Lamini. Thanks for joining us. And we have another geo teacher here that y'all can also, when I ask question, will also give feedback. So you'll get more than one response, right? So natural vegetation tends to strive better on steep slope as opposed to cultivated, right? So forested areas are usually on steep hillsides, whereas small cultivation in the Caribbean, a lot of them also takes place on hillsides because we are limited in our space, and sometimes people go to those areas because they are squatting and they find land to plant on. But when you are doing large scale agriculture, most of the time it is on very flat, gently sloping land. Are you all following with me? Y'all can say hi to Miss Patino. She's another geography teacher here with us, and she's in the chat that will help me reply to you. So let me know if you all understand the influence of relief on vegetation. Nice. So you're all following so far. Let's move on now to relief. Relief, how relief influence settlement. So we spoke about this. It's difficult to build on steep slope, whereas it's way easier, more cost effective to build on flat land, right? Most settlements and cities are usually found on flat areas, right? Residential and commercial areas are usually found on flat areas, whereas sometimes you find agriculture on hillsides, as is the case where we was just referring to about farming, right? Or areas where people clear on the hillsides in the Caribbean to farm. Also, it's easier to build or have services, right? To provide social services or public amenities like schools and hospitals, churches, recreational facilities on flat areas. It becomes difficult and more costly to do this on steeply sloping land. So steep slopes tend to be sparsely populated or with less population and people living there. However, in the Caribbean, I always like to point out this because you learn the theory and then sometimes you say, but miss, so many people in Trinidad live on the hillsides. For example, a lot of people in Glencoe and Westmoreland and Laventille, the northern range is heavily developed, right, with population and settlements. And that is because, of course, we have limited space, but in larger countries where mountains are higher, it is definitely going to have sparser population. So that is a theory that you all are leaning. Everybody understand that? I hope you all are not confused. So we move on to the influence of relief on communication. So communication, again, we just spoke about roads. Same concept again. It's difficult to build roads on steep and rugged terrain. It's cheaper and more easier to build on flat land. But when you do see roads in steep terrain, you would see that they follow this zigzag or meandering pattern with sharp bends because they have to cut through the mountain, and it cannot be in a straight line as on flat land. So steep slopes, right? Sorry, you may find smaller minor roads, whereas most of your highways and main roads would be on flat land, right? You find a lot of footpaths or tracks again in mountainous areas or areas that you have agriculture. So now we look at the influence of relief on land use, right? And when you look at land use meaning not just vegetation or settlements, but you're looking at commercial land use or recreational land use. So you see again, it's more difficult to build on steep slope, right? Natural vegetation and wildlife thrives better on areas that is actually on steep slope because the nature of the vegetation, especially forest areas, you would find a lot of forest areas on mountainous or highland areas, right? Sparsely populated areas, you would see very little agriculture on hillsides. You might see pockets of agriculture, but not large plots of land here, right? So flat land or gently sloping areas, natural vegetation tends to be cleared away for other purposes, land use purposes. And some of these purposes would be to create our towns and cities. A lot of urbanization takes place in terms of building residential settlements. Sometimes we clear it for large scale agriculture, like back in colonial times when we had sugarcane plantation, coffee plantation, right? But they also clear land, flat land, for recreational and sporting facilities. So like football and cricket stadiums. So I'm not too sure if you all are familiar with the Brian Lara stadium that was built in Couva, right? That occupies a lot of nice flat land, right? So I'm going to stop there and we're going to go into now some questions. So we're going to finish off our question that the question that we did now, the paper. So let us look at, if you have the paper, it's 2018. And yesterday we looked at the site, the four features of the site, the settlements. We looked at how relief influences drainage. Did we get to that one? Did we do how relief influence drainage? Let me see if I can share. Did we do, I, I believe we did how relief has influenced drainage yesterday. Did we do that? And now we have to do this one. State three ways in which the relief has influenced settlements. So you're seeing the map here. So look for the settlements on the map. And then you have to look at, question is, okay, did we do this question with drainage? Three ways in which relief has influenced drainage. Did we do that, or we stopped at the previous question with locating the settlements, the type of settlement? Did we? Okay, so let's look at, so we did not do the influence of relief on drainage, right? So let us do that one. Can you see the question? So relief on drainage. So state three ways in which the relief has influenced the drainage of the area indicated on the map. I think we did this one, but I think we did not do settlements. Because I remember people sort of pointing out. Okay, so let us move on. Okay, so we're gonna move on to three ways in which relief has influenced settlements on the map. So write down the question, three ways in which relief has influenced. Yes, we did speak about the radial drainage. We spoke about the types of slopes, the steep slopes. We spoke about, and I told you to write it down. You are correct, Chelsea. Thank you. Um, so we're going to move on to the next relief question, which is state three ways in which the relief has influenced the settlements indicated on the map. So let us look at the map. Three ways in which relief has influenced settlements on the map. So let me show the map here. Can you all see the map clearly? Three ways in which relief has influenced settlements indicated on the map. Very good. So Ms. Patino is saying, as I pointed out before as well, when you are giving any sort of location or you are identifying off the map, you should really, really be specific and give the location using a four-figure grid reference or stating the name of the area where it is. You all understand that? So three ways in which relief has influenced the settlement. So in this case, they're asking you three ways in which the relief has influenced the settlement. So you look at the settlements where they are located and you state three ways in which this change of land, change in the slope of the land has influenced the settlement location. Is the map clear? So Miss Patino gave you a little example so that you are able to quote with reference and names or even a direction. So how she said eastern or northwestern. Okay, Alicia, no problem. It usually stays up. The live is usually up. So you can go back to the previous ones as well. Thanks for joining us. Okay, Isabel. So let us look on the map that is in front of you, right? The map that we have is Point Michel. So you're going to look on the map, you find where the settlements are. Okay, Jonathan, no problem. Thanks for joining. Have a great night. All the best. You all are doing a lot of studying, and I know your hard work will pay off, right? So continue doing the great work that you all are doing and coming out and listening to these sessions. I know it's a very stressful time for you all. So let us look at the map. So you look on the map and you look to see where the settlements are. You look at the land around it, and then you can give the location. So for example, let us say Soufrière. What grid reference is Soufrière located in? What grid reference Soufrière is located in? You're welcome, Alicia and Jonathan. Bye for now. What grid reference? Can you all see? Let me sort of zoom in a little more. So Soufrière is in what? grid reference. Do you all remember how to do four-figure grid reference and six-figure grid reference? So let us go. Look at the settlements that you have. The major settlements on the map here, you have Scott's Head Village, you have Soufrière, you have Point Michel. You might also have some scattered settlements and linear. So you have Bericure over there. And then let us look in the hillsides to see if they are isolated. So you see, like by Pichelin, you see in some bit of isolated. Fontaine Estate, you see some isolated. You also see some sort of line or linear settlements by Picador. Very good. So somebody gave me the four-figure grid reference to Soufrière. So Soufrière is in grid reference 6783. Excellent. Everybody understand that? Nicola, no, not 66. Remember, if you look here, the grid is always the precede, it makes an L. So when you're reading your grid reference, you always read it in the shape of an L. So you make an L. So you go down the vertical line, which is the easting, and the easting is on 67. And then you go across the northing, which is the horizontal line, which is on 83. So it is 67, 83. Very good. Tiloy, thank you. 6783. So that is where Soufrière is, right? You can be even more specific and do a six-figure grid reference. So let me refresh you all a little bit. I feel like you all um, not remembering how to do your grid reference. So let us look at the police station. What is the grid reference for the police station? Six figures. You can give six figures because it's a point location. The difference between four and six-figure grid reference is that with four-figure grid reference, you give the general area, right? It references an area. But when you're giving point location, for example, the police station has a dot, the church has a dot, the school has a dot, that point location can be given using a six-figure grid reference. So give me the six-figure grid reference for the police station located in Soufrière. One second. You can type your answers into chat my computer. Okay. Very good, Isabel. Excellent, right? So someone gave us this six figure for the police station. So it is 67 6 thereabout, right? Because remember, you have to divide that grid square now that Soufre police station is into nine equal pieces that will give you 10. Likewise, you do it for the eastings and for the northings. So you get 67683 4. Excellent. So now that you all know how to give reference, right, to a place, you can also give the name of the place. Tell me three ways. Let's identify three ways quickly. We want to do this question and the last question on the other question paper to wrap up. We started 10 past 6, so we will finish thereabout, right? Three ways in which relief has influenced the settlements. So the settlements is not just the nucleated settlements that you see. You also have to pay attention to the linear and the scattered settlements on the map, and you can state how relief has influenced their location. So, what can you say about the relief? What is the major thing you see about most of the settlements on the map? What is the major thing surrounding the settlements on the map that you can see? If you look at the settlement, what is the major thing that you are seeing with respect to the settlement and relief? Come on, you all know this. You went through it. Oh, nice. So, Gabriel Brown is saying major roads, but remember, roads has to do with transportation or communication network. So, in that case, how can you link that to relief? What about roads? They are in flatter areas. Very good, Isabel. And the flatter areas are where the flat areas are densely populated along the coastal areas. So if you look at the major towns, so you can say something like this, the major towns with nucleated patterns are along the coast, which have flat land or which is located on flatter areas of the map. You're seeing that? Whereas, so someone mentioned surrounded by mountainous areas. So the mountainous areas, if you look at the dark green area, you see that there is a more isolated dispersed settlement pattern in the dark green areas that are steeper and that has estates. So like Pristine Estate over there, Fontaine Estate, you see this dispersed um, and less settlement. So less settlement is built in these steeper mountainous areas, and you can give the location. So coastlines, the mountains areas. What else? Um, So when you say roads, you can also say with respect to roads, right? Settlements are also built along the roads which have been cleared to build roads. So that portion of the land may be also, you know, flatter, right? Do you all understand how you approach a question? What about facilities? What about social amenities? Are you all seeing any social amenities? Commercial areas, we know mainly along the coast, but the social services, are you seeing more social services on the flatter areas of the map as opposed to the steeper areas? You are seeing more forest vegetation. For example, look at the Grand Bay area, right above Grand Bay, where you have trigonometric station 239 and 2505. That area have more forests and there's an absence of settlement there. Do you all understand how you approach a question that they would ask you on relief with respect to the location of settlements or the way in which relief has influenced settlements on the map? You're focusing on the settlements and you're focusing on the relief. Is that okay? So that was the last question in map work under the 2018 paper. So we completed that, and then now we have, I just want to finish up the 2014 question. Which is Barbados. So let us see. Okay, good, Isabel. So let us look now at Barbados. Let us finish up with this map. So Barbados 2014, this is 2014. So we did, I think, list 4 features of the drainage of south of Northern 82. We did that. So now we're going to look at 4 features of relief west of Easting 24. 4 features of relief west of Easting 24. So we locate where Easting 24 is, and then you look at everything to the west of that. So this is 24. Are you all able to see? So I stopped directly on 24. So the portion that I'm showing from top to bottom is stop on Easting 24. So you are now looking at everything west of that, how relief has affected that portion of the map. So You can state any aspect of relief in this case because they didn't really focus on settlements or vegetation. They just said, the question just asks to highlight four features of relief. List four features of the relief west of Easting 24. Four features of the relief. So, what are the four features? This is the last question, you all. I know you all are tired and have been going. So, let's wrap up. What can you say about the relief? How relief has influenced four features of the relief in this area west of Easting 24? Four features of the relief. Okay, very good. The majority of nucleated settlements are along the coast where it is flatter. Excellent, Isabel. Settlements, very good. That is one feature. What is another feature we can outline? Very, very good. What else can you see in this area of the map in terms of relief, you all? You can use relief here in a general sense because they didn't give you a specific one. So you can also look at drainage, you can look at the roads, you can look at the land uses, right? So all of that you can look at the influence and relief, the influence of relief on all of them. There's high elevation of land further away from the coast. Very good. So as you move away from the coast, there's higher elevation of land. And you will need to pinpoint these areas of higher elevation. So you can give an area, a grid reference location for figure, right? What else? Very good, Chelsea. Very good. What about the roads? And Faith, we can use trellis pattern here because we're looking at relief. You have to give me an answer that would describe the influence of relief on vegetation. So you can't just give me a drainage pattern. You understand that? So you have to just link that. What about the drainage? You are seeing that the rivers are flowing, the roads are well connected because it's flatter. Very good, Isabel. So you see that there are highways throughout this area. There's a highway, right? And we can give the location, right? So if you look at Eastern 23, the highway begins at Eastern 23 because this area or portion of the map is majority is mainly flat, so it is easier to build roads. So you have a better connected communication area. Very good. So if you want to use something with drainage, you need to look at the rivers that flow through the area. You can see that the contours, right, that are close to the rivers are slightly closer, and there's also vegetation along the rivers. So if you notice that, so you focus on the roads, you focus on the land use. Is there one land use? Are you seeing forests? You what are you seeing about the land use? You can see that there are several land uses, right? There is the settlements, there's plantation agriculture, there are different economic activities in the area like farm, plantation, and factories because this area is flat. So it is very well developed. Do you all understand how to answer that question? The area is very well developed. Do you all understand that? I hope you all took down that. So we had one being that the nucleated areas on the map is located very near the coast where the land is flatter. And as you move further away inland, it begins to get you have higher elevations of land. We talk about the land being predominantly flat. So throughout this area, you have major roads and highways connecting throughout the area. We also spoke about, right, we also talk about having several types of land uses because this area is flat. So the area is well developed. So you see that you have factories, you have plantation farm, you have a lot of different types of cultivated vegetation. And we also focus on looking at the areas along the river, which seems to be a little bit slightly steeper, and vegetation grows along that area. Everybody understand that? Is that making sense to you all? Would you all be able to answer something like this now? So let us go to the last question, and this one is 6 marks. Explain the distribution of trees and cultivated areas. Explain the distribution of trees and cultivated areas. So 6 marks. This is a lot of marks, right? So you need at least to describe and to explain the distribution of trees, and then you explain the distribution of cultivated areas on the map. 3 marks for each point. So 3 marks for the explanation of the description for trees, and then another 3 marks for cultivated areas. So let us look at that. So explain now on the map, explain the distribution of cultivated areas on the map, and explain the distribution of the trees on the map. So distribution of trees, 3 marks, and distribution of cultivated areas. What can you say? So look at the trees. So you see where the trees are located. We just mentioned that. And look at the cultivated area across the map. Nicole, nice to meet you, Nicole. I don't think I saw you replied anytime before. What school do you attend, Nicole? St. Benedict's. Oh, nice. Welcome, Nicole. So, give me an explanation for the distribution of the trees and an explanation for the describe the explain the distribution of cultivated vegetation and explain the distribution of trees. Remember, when you're talking about distribution, you are really looking at the location, and you are going to be describing in terms of explaining, sorry, whether it's evenly distributed or unevenly distributed. Is there a sparse distribution or a dense distribution? So let me know in the chat. You can give your answers in the chat to the question. Let's wrap up with this last question. Strong, guys. So let's explain the distribution of the trees and then the distribution of the cultivated vegetation. Faith, Nickel, you guys there? Chelsea, Isabel, Grace, are you all there? Let's answer the last question. Explain the distribution. So give me an explanation for the distribution of the trees on the map, and then give me an explanation for the distribution of the cultivated areas. Okay, so the distribution of the trees. So if you look at the trees, all of the trees, right? The trees are along the rivers, and they have it's evenly distributed throughout the map, because it follows the network of the rivers. So you see the drainage on the map, right? The trees are along the rivers, and they are evenly distributed along the rivers. Very good, Isabel. The cultivated areas are on flat parts of the land nearer to the coast. No, 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 not just because they are near the coast because of the nearness of the water. No, but generally on the map, the cultivated area is throughout the entire map. So the entire map is cultivated, with different types of crops, because the area is so flat. So because the land in this town in Barbados is very, very flat as an island. So if you ever been to Barbados, or you know the island of Barbados, it's not like Trinidad, how we have the northern range. It is very flat. It's not like Jamaica, who has the Blue Mountains, right? So Barbados is very flat. And this area that we were given on the map, the area is so flat, right? So you can see that by the contours. The contours are very wide throughout the entire map, which allows for the the land to be planted or cultivated with a variety of crops. So that is why you can see different types of crops cultivated on the flat land. And also the water availability provided by the rivers allow for the cultivated areas to be grown, um, throughout the map. So we can say that the cultivated vegetation on this map is well distributed, evenly distributed across the map. Whereas we can say that the trees on the map follows the pattern of the drainage. The trees are well and evenly distributed, I should say, evenly distributed along the rivers. And it has um, a moderate spread throughout the map. Everybody understand that? Do you all understand how to answer those questions now? So next week, please God, we will have another class, and then we can finish up relief next week and answer two other do two other past papers next week. And then Monday, I would like to go into the broad topics so we can focus on some weathering and economic activities for your main exam. So before you leave, was the session today helpful? Let me know one thing that you have learned from today, or one thing that you think you remembered, one thing that stood out to you, one thing you learned today, or one thing you have learned new today. Was the session okay? J, Jag, Aja. Hi, straight from Jamaica, straight. I am sorry. I will try to speak slower. Thank you very much, Jag. I will try to speak slower because of my accent. I am sorry, but I will really, really try and speak in slower. And the maps, because it's digital, I know it may be difficult for for you all to see it on your end, but you're welcome, and I will try to speak slower to facilitate the students that are from Jamaica or Grenada or outside of Trinidad and Tobago. But thank you so much for your feedback. It is well appreciated. And I hope even you got something from the class today and from the PowerPoint. I hope you got something. So you're welcome, Faith. So what did you all understand in today's class? Are you all understanding? Do you all think you all would be able to answer some of those questions on relief and vegetation? I will finish it up next week and we'll do some more practice on those types. And refresh your grid reference and angular bearings and those types of skills. Thank you. You're welcome, Grace. So just drop one thing that you have learned today, one thing you have learned, or one thing that stood out to you before you leave. Okay, bye everyone. Have a good afternoon and check the Facebook page so you'll know when I'm going live again. Okay, have a good night. Bye.